Hi, this is Caroline van Kimmenade from The Happy Sensitive, and in this video I want to address narcissism. Narcissism in the form of, real severe narcissistic personality disorder is a real problem for us HSPs because we get drawn to people who need help or who seem to need help, and very often we're taken advantage of. So it's very important to understand the kind of mechanisms that draw us in and what's really going on. So on my website, I have an article about narcissistic love versus unconditional love. And that's really important to understand that there are certain things you'll never get from a narcissist, but that as an HSP, you're kind of going to be wanting or hoping will happen anyway. And once you really understand that, it's going to help you to let go. So I'll have the link for that under this video. The second article is one where I address, how to be a narcissist, which is really about challenging you to think outside of the box, to think outside of the HSP box of this is how everybody is, everybody's really nice, they just want to be nice, they just want to be loved, and really challenge you to consider that maybe inside the narcissist has a completely different reality and a completely different worldview that really is very, very far from the kind of worldview that you have. To really consider that what you think is going on in everybody else's head is really not what's going on inside of the narcissist head. So I'm not going to address that here, but it is something I want to mention because what I'm going to be talking about here is really the third part of taking responsibility for your involvement with a narcissist. So if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, or you have some kind of friend or acquaintance in your life that you get really drawn into, with the kind of interpersonal dynamics that happen with a narcissistic person, then the first thing you need to do is start to understand the kind of things you're never going to get from them and the kind of things that are never going to happen in a contact or relationship with a narcissist. So that's why that first article on love is important. The second part is really owning how awful it makes you feel to be in a relationship with a narcissist. Whether that's a friendly relationship or a romantic one, to really own how awful it is and what you're really dealing with. Even if you can't quite know for sure, because how can we know what's really going on in somebody else's head, right? But you will have important clues, and it is important to place them in a context of what is likely going on for this person, which will be very different from what's going on for you. So this is really, about taking it, not taking it personally, but taking it seriously. And we have a tendency to kind of gloss over our own hurts, like, oh, it's not so bad, I'm okay, I can handle it, And then, though, that kind of abuse that comes from, hanging out with narcissists will continue. So it's really important to own that. So that's like these phases. There's kind of intellectual phase, then there's a very emotional phase of really knowing how much something hurt you, how much being in a relationship with this person hurt you, how much just hanging out with this person hurts you, and how it's always going to be like that. It's not going to change. So there is a kind of emotional, dramatic side to freeing yourself from narcissistic relationships where you have to get really honest about how awful it is. And that can be hard for us because we don't ideally want the world to be like that, and we like to think that things are not really that bad. So for us HSPs to really own how awful it is and how hurt we are and how much we hate that kind of interaction is really important. And what I'm going to share with you now is not going to be helpful if you haven't gone through those first two phases. If you haven't come to an intellectual understanding of what is and what isn't possible, and if you haven't gone through the emotional purging, let's say, and the emotional reality and facing that reality of how much it hurts. So that's just a warning. So you don't want to skip right to this part, because then you're going to miss out on some of the things that need to happen before you can really disconnect. But once you have come to this understanding of, okay, I know what I'm involved in, and I really hate their guts, because this is important to come to that place where I really hate their guts, and it's normal because this is not working for me, then you have to come to the next phase of letting go, which is really getting really honest with yourself in a different way, where you start to research why you were attracted to them in the first place. And this is where our unresolved inner wounds and our own, let's say, dark side comes in, because we're all human beings, and we all have a wide spectrum of emotions, and we all have experienced difficult situation, and we all have some beliefs inside of ourselves that say, oh, it's not worth it, nothing is working, oh, I hate this, you know. And so all that kind of stuff that I talked about in the second article is all, there's a part of that we recognize inside of ourselves. We have some of that, like, ugh, everything's so stupid, I hate everything, I feel so disrespected, I just have to take what's mine. We do have a bit of that inside of us, and that's a part of us that's, you know, been really wounded, and that also needs to be seen. Now, one of the things that can happen if you tend to gravitate towards narcissists and you keep getting hurt again and again is that you're kind of avoiding that inner part of you that's really hurt and that really needs to be seen and validated. So by hanging out with narcissists, it's like you can see that part in them, and by loving them and trying to take care of them, what you're indirectly trying to do is take care of that part inside of you that was really hurt. And take care of that part of inside of you that really hates everything, has just given up on the world, doesn't want to try anymore, and just wants everything to be better now, right? So when you can come to that kind of realization, like, oh, there's something inside of the narcissist that I have inside of me, except in them, it's so huge that you can't avoid it. You know, it's so in your face that you have to deal with it. So everybody has a little bit of this in them, but for a narcissist is putting it on full display. You know, everything about that. So if you keep gravitating towards narcissists, you keep gravitating towards understanding and relating to that part of the human experience. You have to start looking where that part is inside of you, because if you don't bring that into your awareness, you're going to keep on running into those narcissists. The reason is that a part of you wants to heal, and every part of you wants to be seen and accepted. And to really embrace that part of you that feels so dark does not mean that you're going to turn into a monster, because the moment you bring awareness to it, something starts to change, and it can become integrated, and you can get really real about yourself and be like, wow, I'm not a saint, I'm not a perfect person, sometimes I have a bad day and I hate everyone, and it's okay. And when that happens, I give myself, compassionate attention, and I take care of myself in the same way that I am kind of tempted to take care of narcissists in my life, right? But instead of like putting all that caretaking efforts on them, you put it on that part of yourself that really needs the healing, because you are receptive to healing and a narcissist is not. So you're kind of wasting your healing and caretaking efforts by spending it all on them, when really the need to help them, the need to be there for them, comes from that inner desire to heal this part inside of you. All right, so that's really super important to know, that you connect with that, and that's the final step of taking responsibility for narcissistic relationships. But here's the thing, if you start doing that while you're in a relationship with a narcissist, or while you're surrounded by narcissists and giving in to their demands, then it's unproductive, because then you're starting to take responsibility too soon, and you're trying to heal in the middle of a chaotic situation. So it's really important first to acknowledge that your narcissistic relationships with people are not working. Narcissists in your life are not going to make good friends or partners. It's really important to own that, to really deal with how much you hate them, how much you are upset by them, how much you're disappointed in them, all that stuff. And then when you're out, to deal with the fact of like, oh, there's a part of me that reminds me of the narcissist, and I have trouble with that. I have trouble, looking at that and owning it. And so in that way, you're kind of, in a way, by bringing acceptance to it, you're making it okay. You're like, it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be upset. And of course the problem is, if you do that too soon, if you do that with a narcissist in your life, then you're making them okay and you're continuing the abuse, right? So that's a really kind of subtle but very practical difference, where you really have to sort out like how people are treating you from how you're treating yourself. And yes, there's a kind of projection happening where you have to own, what part of somebody else that you're rejecting are you rejecting in yourself. But you have to keep those two separate. Just because somebody's really mean to you doesn't mean that just accepting that is going to change anything. It's just going to make it worse. You have to kind of set practical boundaries in your practical life, And then, in the inner healing, bring all your love and consciousness and awareness to those parts of yourself that feel too ugly and too dark and too mean and too bad to warrant any attention and to warrant any love. And when you do that, you'll start to find that you lose interest in hanging out with narcissists, or you lose interest in trying to understand them, you lose interest in fighting them, because you start to see that in the end, the fight was not about you and them, the fight was between you and a part of yourself.